This is your path to $1,000 plus brand deals, even if you've got a small audience. This is how to get your piece of the $480 billion with a B dollar creator economy pie. And to help school us on this is the author of Sponsor Magnet, which you can find at sponsormagnet.com, Justin Moore. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show.
Dude, Nick, I'm so thrilled to be here, man.
I am pumped for this one. Stick around. We're covering what brands really care about, how to reach the right decision makers, and how to maximize your earning power, not just with one-off campaigns, but with long-term partnerships. And that's just round one. We've got 3 rounds with Justin today, including his business idea donation for Side Hustle Nation and the triple threat. But first, I want to get a sense of what's possible in this world. You've got dozens and dozens of people that you've worked with. Is there anything that really stands out to you in terms of like a really small audience size creator who landed something meaningful?
Yeah, 100%. So I have a coaching client. Her name is Dr. Alex, and she has a podcast called Digital Pathology Place. Okay. She's a veterinarian, like a physician. And her podcast on average gets hundreds of listens, not tens of thousands. And her YouTube videos, same, you know?
Okay.
And she is absolutely crushing it with brand partnerships, Nick, because if you think about who is in her audience, it's the lab techs. It's the people who work in the C-suite at the hospitals. It's the people who work at the biopharmaceutical companies. And if you're over here, medical device company XYZ, and you're sitting here thinking, how am I going to spend this $20 million marketing budget? This is what they're thinking, right? They're thinking, okay, well, maybe we could continue buying ads in that prehistoric trade magazine that sits in the doctor's office,
sure.
Right? That whoever knows if anyone reads those. Maybe trying to run like pay-per-click ads on Google. It's heavily regulated, so they may not even be able to run ads on Meta, you know, who knows? Or maybe they could roll out the red carpet for someone like Dr. Alex. They could say all of the people, even though it's a small audience, all the people who are in this kind of niche community, these are the people that we want to get in front of. So let's fly her out to our factory. Let's pay her to come and speak on stage on our behalf at an upcoming trade, industry event.
Okay.
And so she has her business funded by tons of these niche medical healthcare players because of who she represents. And so again, like she does not have hundreds of thousands of followers, but brand partnerships has become a huge part of her business.
Does it need to be a B2B type of play? I mean, we've seen some examples on the show in the past. Brian Orr comes to mind from the HVAC school. Like we're going to create a podcast for HVAC technicians and help them train, how to be better at their job. Killer business. And Harry Duran comes to mind with the Vertical Farming podcast, where it's like, we're going to talk to founders and CEOs of vertical farming companies. And it's like so niche specific. That's like you said, if you want to spend this ad dollars, we're the only game in town, or we're one of the only new media games in town. But do you see it's almost got to be kind of in that micro niche B2B type of market?
I wouldn't say B2B necessarily. It definitely helps because there's a lot of businesses who are seeing the light in terms of the value of working with creators and entrepreneurs in this capacity. But I do think having some sort of niche helps. However, what I would say though is that let's say you are small, let's say you have sub 1,000 followers or listeners or subscribers or whatever. What you pitch to the brand has to change though. So if you come to them and you say, would love to talk about your brand or your product on my YouTube channel or my podcast or my newsletter or something, and they go take a look at it and you're getting an average of 100 views per video or listens or whatever, not really going to move the needle for them. Let's just be real here, right? And so how about instead if we approach the pitch a little bit differently? So what I would do is I would say, okay, let me go and do a holistic analysis of this brand's social presence. Let me see, are they posting on social media at all? Or do they have a podcast for their brand? Do they have a YouTube channel for their brand? Do they have a blog? Are they sending out a newsletter? If they are posting on some of these platforms, is it good content? Is it consistent content? And then I would reach out to them and I would say, hey, listen, love your brand. However, I think you could be telling your brand story in a much more compelling way. I would love to create content on autopilot for you. I'll send you 5-10 videos a month. I'll do, I'll stand up your podcast. I'll be the host. I'll interview people on your marketing team. I'll interview my friends. It's turnkey, $7,500 a month. What do you think? And yeah, syndicating that content on my platforms could be part of it. But also you're saying, hey, go take a look at my platform because it serves as my portfolio. Even though I might have 1,000 followers, like I know what I'm doing when it comes to creating content. And so again, as you grow, depending on your size, what you pitch has to change.
Okay. So this is where it blends from being a UGC partner or being a marketing consultant, or so to speak, or content creator versus we're buying impressions from you. And it's like, if you don't have a lot of impressions to sell, you got to get a little more creative on the other side. And we had a woman on the show who was, the brands didn't care about the size of her following. They wanted the content to post on their own channels. And it was like, sometimes $200-$300, sometimes $1,000 a video. It's like, she got really good at creating these hooky little short clips. It was like the hourly rate from some of that, if you could put that together, was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
100%. And if you can start getting really creative about negotiating those types of deals for UGC or user generated content, is you may determine once you get pretty good is like, hey, instead of paying me a flat rate or paying me $1,000 or whatever it's going to be, pay me a percentage of your ad spend. Meaning, like, if this asset starts performing really well and converting very well, the more money you spend, the more money I make. So there's really creative ways that you can start thinking about setting up compensation with these types of arrangements.
Yeah, this is one of especially UGC is one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in the space. It's been almost 10 years since the last time we did a dedicated episode about landing sponsorships, landing brand deals. What are some of the other big shifts you've seen here?
There absolutely has been a gargantuan shift to short form content. When we started out back in 2009, we had a blog, we had a YouTube channel, and brands were just starting to dip their toes into the idea about paying someone to like talk about them in a YouTube video. And long form content, podcasts and so on was like, that was really the kind of standard, and then obviously sponsored blogs and so on too. Yeah. But over the last, for sure, 18 to 24 months, a lot of brands have shifted a much bigger percentage of the marketing pie over to short form content, whether that's Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and so on. One of the reasons, Nick, is because of the increased repurposability of those assets. So when you sponsor a blogger or a newsletter operator or a YouTuber or something, like that content, that integration, let's say that sponsorship goes live on the brand, on that person's platform, and then for a lot of them, that kind of disappears into the ether, especially with like newsletters and all that. Some YouTube can have like more of an evergreen shelf life. Yeah. But if you think about a 30-second video or a 60-second video that someone might create, oftentimes the brands are negotiating for the rights to put that content elsewhere, maybe on their website, on their social media, to run paid advertising with it. And so now the ROI, or the ROAS, the return on ad spend that they're thinking when they pay you $2,500 or whatever, or 10 grand, it starts becoming like, okay, I understand why I need to pay this creator to secure those rights. So there's a lot of different reasons. And of course, like, there's a lot more mind share around people consuming content in that format. And so that's been a big shift.
Got it. So that's something to have in your back pocket as you're approaching brands. Hey, it's not just something that's going to live on my channel. If you want the reusage rights, or the recycling, the licensing rights to this content, absolutely, you can have it. But there's a step up in the pricing tier in that case. So talk me through. I'm a new creator. I don't have a huge following. I don't know. Let you pick the niche. It could be the veterinarian thing or something else. But like from, I think this is going to be a viable path to monetize, to finding the decision makers to get my first deal here.
Yeah. So I think the first and most important thing to realize, if I'm saying, where do I even start? It's like, first go and find, are there other brands sponsoring other people in your niche? That's the easiest way. That's the lowest hanging fruit, is like, maybe there's other creators, other newsletters, other, YouTubers that you follow or whatever, and just start acknowledging, like, okay, let me go back and look at their last 10 videos. Like, were any of those sponsored? You can even search on people's YouTube channels for hashtags, like hashtag sponsored, the word sponsored, sponsoring, partnering. Okay. You can start to see like, okay, wow, this person was sponsored by that. And that's the best place to start.
That's a good sign. If that company is in alignment with you, they have budget, they have a track record of making that kind of investment.
And they already see the value in partnering with creators. A lot of times people will go to a brand that has never worked with a single creator, and it's just a harder sell. The sales cycle's longer. You're going to probably get frustrated because you're having lots of conversations that don't lead anywhere. And so I would say start there for brands that already really kind of understand. The second step, and it's a really critical one, Nick, is realizing that whether you like the brand or not is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of table stakes, because at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about, will this sponsor serve your audience? Because really what brands care about is, hey, does your audience represent a pool of future prospective customers of us? We don't care that you like the product. We care, is your audience interested in it? And so what I advocate for in my book Sponsor Magnet is like, let's actually start a proactive dialogue with my audience to learn more about them. I want to learn what's going on in their lives, what's keeping them up at night, what problems do they have. A lot of people get fixated, oh, I'm in this like veterinary niche, or I'm in this DIY quilting niche or whatever. I guess the only brands I can work with are like fabric brands or yarn brands or something. Sure. When in reality, let's pull that example for the thread. Sorry, I did not mean to make that pun. Let's pull that thread for a second. If you start asking questions of that community, I don't know, for example, maybe you realize you send out a Google Form survey in your next newsletter, or you put out a poll on your YouTube community tab or something, and you realize that, wow, I didn't realize 50% of my audience, they're homeschooling families, and they're really into DIY and crafting and all that. That represents a very specific type of psychographic of consumer. Maybe I should pitch a brand like ABC Mouse, which helps kids read. I bet you could probably think of a pretty creative way to integrate a brand like that into your DIY and quilting niche. And so it comes back to like understanding your audience. And also you should be asking, like, are there any brands and tools and products that you're using and loving right now? What if 30% of them say one brand in particular? Well, you better go take that data and go pitch the brand and be like, hey, I've got this huge cohort of my audience that is interested in using your product. I would love to expose my full audience to you.
Got it. It was biting my tongue a little bit, because like, well, if you're the face of the brand, or if you're the face of your own personal brand and your content, it's like, you got to be at least comfortable. Ideally you're a user, you're an advocate, you're a fan of this company that you're pitching. It's like, because you don't want to become just a pitch person for 100%.
So what I meant,
I wouldn't recommend
what I meant is that, of course, you have to it be a tool that you would recommend, but really that's not what you should be leading with in your pitch, because the brand doesn't care that you like it. You need to illustrate to them, does your audience have existing affinity? That's really what I meant.
Okay, got it. Okay, so step one, kind of creating this list or this spreadsheet of potential partners, the companies and services that you use, the companies that you see sponsoring other creators in the space, and maybe the companies that your audience is already into if you do a little survey.
Right.
What I did early on, and maybe it's kind of embarrassing, but like, this was my genius idea. I was going to comb the archives of Entrepreneurs on Fire, like the last 50 episodes or something that John did, and itemize out all those sponsors and identify the top 10, 25, whatever, like the ones that I like, the companies that I like, the companies that I used, say, hey, if they're sponsoring this show, they would be a great sponsor for the Side Hustle show. And beyond that, it's like I went through the handful of those, and then, scroll down the website and look for something that says partnerships or work with us or media or it was like, that's kind of where the trail, that's kind of where the trail went cold in trying to find the decision makers. And sometimes it would come back, be like, well, we work through an agency, or let me forward your email to. It was really difficult to actually connect with somebody who had the buying authority.
Right. Yeah, that is a very big challenge for sure. And you can also convince yourself that pitching doesn't work if that's the extent of what you do. And by the way, I just want to like empathize with you for a second there, because that's exactly what we did when we started, right? It's just, you know, because you don't go to school for this type of thing, right? Like that seems like an intuitive way to do some sleuthing. But I have this magic search terminology that I share in the book that really helps you triangulate these decision makers at these brands, but it depends on the size of the brand. So what I mean by that is that if you are targeting a small mom and pop shop, let's say less than 15 employees, probably there's only one marketing person who works there, right?
Sure,
the director
sure.
of marketing, the social media manager, if there is even a marketing person, right? And so of course you need to change the type of person, like job titles that you're searching for. When it comes to, as brands get larger, let's say 16 to 100 employees, they start having a hierarchy in their marketing team. So maybe they now have a marketing manager, they have a coordinator, maybe they have some directors there. And so a big part of what I teach is like learning to start studying, let's say, the LinkedIn profiles of some of these roles. So going back to what I mentioned in terms of the magic search terminology, it's brand name, job title, and then the word LinkedIn in your favorite search, you know, let's say Google. And so the reason that I recommend this is that I have found that Google is a much better tool to surface the different jobs. Of course, you can invest in LinkedIn Sales Navigator and so on, but like that's like $600 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so what I found is that you can actually find all these search results of like these people in these marketing teams. And so the first one that I would recommend trying at, let's say, a medium-sized brand would be, the job title would be influencer marketing manager. Dude, it's so much easier to find the decision makers these days than it was like 10 years ago, because pretty much every, especially consumer brand, has either an influencer marketing manager, a partnerships marketing manager, an affiliate marketing manager. And so those are like the best place to start, I've found, especially if they're doing these types of activities.
Got it. And I think that influencer marketing manager was the same role that our UGC guest, Megan, talked about looking for. And sometimes it was just DMing the brands on Instagram, especially if they found what looked like other UGC content in that brand's feed. Hey, you know, I'm a UGC creator. It's like, it was a more natural leading. Would you mind putting me in touch with the influencer marketing manager?
The tricky part, though, I'll just put a caution here about DMing brands on social media, is that especially as brands get larger, the chances that the person managing the social handle, that they have any sort of decision-making power for paid partnerships is like really low. Yeah. Normally those people are like community managers, and, you know, they're in the DMs with people who are, let's say it's Chipotle, someone's complaining about a lukewarm burrito and they're like, here's a $5 coupon, right? They're not the like, oh, here, yeah, talk to us about this like Q4 holiday campaign. And so I really would recommend going to the effort of using tools like LinkedIn to triangulate who's actually the decision maker, and then using other tools like Hunter.io or Apollo or whatever to actually find their email addresses.
Okay. So then comes, well, what do I send this person? I'm coming in out of the blue. I'm coming in cold. How do I stand out from everybody else who's doing the same thing?
Yeah, so I have a pitching methodology that I teach in the book called the ROPE method. So it's ROPE. So what I teach is that your pitch has to be relevant to a campaign that the brand is either currently running or has run in the past. O stands for organic, meaning that you can tie your pitch back to organic work that you've already published that illustrates that your audience has affinity for their brand. Like we were talking about earlier, your audience, not you. P stands for proof, so you can show how you've helped other brands achieve results. And E stands for easy to execute, when the brand says that they're interested. Like, what did you have in mind? And
Got
so
it. What if you don't have any proof yet?
if you don't have any proof, the next best thing would be if you have affiliate performance. So maybe you're an Amazon associate, or maybe you're part of another brand's affiliate program. That can absolutely serve as proof that you actually are influential. But if you even if you don't have that, even if you have no affiliate performance, the whole idea of why a brand would want to hire you is that when you say to your audience, like, hey, go do this thing, that people actually take action. So if you've told them to sign up for a webinar before, or you've told them to go check out this thing at this store, and you have DMs or you have email replies of people saying like, hey, Nick, thanks so much for telling me about that. I went and did the thing. That can absolutely serve as proof as well.
Okay. Got it. One example that stands out is Chris from All the Hacks. We were chatting last, he said something like 25% of his audience had used his Viore coupon code. was like a huge percent, and it was obviously the people who answered the survey. So it was maybe a little bit biased, by the people who were engaged enough to take action and do the survey. But it was like, that's really powerful ammunition to take to the next brand and say, yes, these people take action.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Okay. And then the E was easy. It was ease of execution.
Yeah, the E is easy to execute, meaning like we're going to pitch them something very concrete. We're going to say, I'm going to do 3 YouTube integrations for you. I'm going to insert your mid-roll ad into the back catalog of my podcast for 15 days. I can turn around the first integration in the next 10 days. I'll grant you usage rights through the end of the year. So it's something very, very concrete versus, hey, would love to figure out a way to collaborate.
Oh, okay. Okay. So making it an easy yes versus here's 3 packages to choose from. Just like, no. Let's start with something simple where they could be like, sure, yes, sign
well,
here.
the likelihood of them saying yes, sure, where do I sign is super unlikely. So the point of having those bullets of like, here's what I can do for you is more about giving them something tangible to react to.
Okay.
So I am a fan of ultimately later down the line, after you've had an initial discovery call with them, providing packages like you mentioned. But for the initial trying to get your foot in the door, it's much more about pitching them something succinct.
Got it. Okay. Very good. So that is, don't expect somebody to be like, yes, where do we sign right out of the gate? But
right.
Typically the next step is going to lead to this discovery call and then try and craft a more detailed proposal, small, medium, and large type of thing.
Right.
Like any strategies on structuring those packages?
Yeah, well, the first advice is don't just provide one package, because a lot of people do that, especially if a brand comes inbound and says, hey, how much do you charge, Nick, for a podcast ad read or something? And what a lot of people do is they just spit back one number. They say 500 or whatever the number is, right? And so absolutely don't do that because now you've just encouraged the brand to evaluate you 100% on price. There's no other levers that you've given them to. And so they put you into a giant spreadsheet and there's 10 other podcasters that they reached out to. And if your number that you gave is just too high based on this is what I did when I ran my agency, is that there would be this larger budget that we had to work with 20 people, right? So we have 200 grand or whatever. And we were charged by the brand, which is our client, to do this campaign. And so everyone charges differently. So there was this Tetrising exercise that we had to do where we would just see, okay, we went and we kind of kicked the tires on everyone, figured out their rates, and like, here's the people that we can ultimately move forward with. And then these people who just like charge too much, like we just have to delete their rows and say we can't work with them, right? And so the first shift is realizing, okay, let's go from only give them one number to giving them at least 3 different packages. So you say, hey, here's several different ways that you can collaborate with me, so that there's at least one package that they can move forward with you at. I talk about, like, if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, I talk about this a lot, which is that like, you don't need to like be the MVP and have every package be like this knockout 20 grand type thing. Like, you could build a really robust business kind of hitting singles and doubles all day long. And in fact, that's really what my wife and I have done for our career. And so that's the first shift, is like going from one number to 3 packages. And then there's this kind of more complex shift, which I think is worth mentioning, is realizing that if you are providing multiple packages, don't make the variance between those packages quantity. This is what most people do, is they say, okay, package 1 is 1 post, package 2 is 2 posts, package 3 is 3 posts. And if you pick package 3, I'll give you a 10% discount or something, right? Okay. It's not really that exciting to a lot of brands, especially if you've never worked with them before, because they probably want to get at least one engagement under their belt to see what it's like working with you. Because what happens if they get into it and you're a nightmare, right? You're not professional, you're not communicative, they've been burned before, so they don't want to do that. And so the better thing to do is to tie your packages to the brand's goals. So one thing that I encourage you to do on a discovery call with the brand is actually ask them, hey, what does success look like to you? What would a win be like? And they're going to say a lot of different things. Probably they're going to say awareness, or, hey, we want to get your content to repurpose it for ads, or, oh, we want to drive sales or app downloads or whatever. And so what you do in your proposal is you say, okay, good. Package 1 is the awareness package. That's where I'm going to do the podcast insertions. I'm going to do the dynamic back catalog thing. And then package 2, hey, guess what? That doesn't include any of those things. Package 2 is the repurposing goal. So in that package, I'm going to give you 5 30-second videos that I don't even post anywhere. You're going to leverage my name and likeness. I'm going to make ads for you because you said you needed that. You wanted ads to repurpose. And then package 3, That's the conversion package. That's where I'm going to do the newsletter blasts. I'm going to do the Instagram stories with a link sticker on every frame to drive people to the trial thing. And then guess what package 4 is, Nick? That includes everything. That includes everything, and that's the only way for the brand to accomplish all of their objectives.
Okay. Got it. All of the above. Press hard. There's 4 copies here. Okay. This is really cool. Is there an advantage to say, like, look, I want to be a content creator. Like, that's what I don't want to be a salesperson.
Yep.
Like working with an influencer agency, working through a network, like, obviously I'm going to give up a percentage to do that. Speak about the pros and cons here.
Man. So I could say firsthand from experience, I've been a part of networks. We've had management in the past and so on. And we kind of have a bit of PTSD from that whole experience, mainly because the financial incentives are misaligned. So let me share a quick example. So when I ran my agency, again, to clarify, we were more like an advertising agency. We were not directly managing or exclusively representing creators. Our clients were the brands. And so when the brands hired us, we would then go after any creator who seemed like they would be a good fit for that. And so what would happen is we would reach out to a creator and we would look at their bio on social media or their blog or whatever, and it would be their manager's email address. And we say, okay, we reach out to them and say, hey, our client is interested in hiring your client to do this campaign. And the very first thing that the manager would say, Nick, would be, oh yeah, she's probably interested, but do you need more people? Because I have 19 other people on my roster, and here's all their rates. Do you like any of them too? Okay. And so a less scrupulous brand or one without ethics would say, oh yeah, well actually I like those 3 other people and they're cheaper and better. So let me just work with them. Because does that manager care where their 20% comes from? If the only way in which they're being compensated is a percentage of the deal and there's no retainer, they don't care. And so that's one small example that I can share. The other just anecdote that I could share, dude, is that we've known a lot of people over the last 15 years being creators, and almost without exception, the people who delegated this stuff, the people who, I don't want to deal with the business stuff, I just want to be a creator and all that, they are either no longer creators or they've really struggled. And the people that have decided that, like, this is my business, there's no one who's ever going to care about this as much as I do. I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm going to understand what do partners and brands find valuable about working with me. Those are the ones that are still doing really well and thriving. And so I'm a big proponent of this idea that, like, you need to take true ownership over these assets that you're creating.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. If you want to play in this business and treat it like a business, you're going to have to learn how to do the business side.
Right.
Where do you see creators screwing this up? Say they got their first yes and they've been given this $5,000 opportunity. Where does it fall through the cracks? Where do they screw it up from getting that brand ever to call them back again?
Man, so really during the execution phase of the deal, right? Yeah, you may have gotten the deal across the finish line in terms of signing the contract and the negotiation and all that. But, like, if you are not communicative, if you go off the rails in terms of they approved one thing and you just kind of called an audible while you were creating the content, and then you send it back to them and they're like, this isn't anything like what we had in mind. And then you give them a bunch of flack and saying, like, yeah, well, you should trust me because I'm the creator and I have the creative vision and trust me and all that. And if you're just kind of a nightmare to deal with, that is the time where they decide either, hey, this person's amazing, or wow, this was a nightmare, we're never hiring them again. So that's one piece. The other piece, I think, comes towards the end of the partnership, Nick, where maybe, let's say they did execute it successfully, and then they posted the content, they invoiced the brand paid them. And then the big mistake that they make is that they never reach out to the brand again. They just make an assumption that, like, well, if the brand was happy, if they like me, they'll reach out and ask to collaborate with me again.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not the case at all. The onus is on you to put together what I call a post-campaign report, where you're sharing not just the quantitative data of how the campaign went, but the qualitative data. You have a podcast, right? So you understand that, like, oftentimes you may be getting private feedback about that episode or, a sponsorship you might do that's not on a public facing social media platform. So yeah, on YouTube, there's public facing comments, but, like, if I do a newsletter integration, oftentimes I'll get replies to that being like, oh yeah, I tried that software 6 months ago sucks. Or like I tried that food, a year ago and it's terrible for XYZ reason. Is the brand seeing that feedback? No, they're not. And so it's your job to send that to them, even if it's negative or neutral feedback, and saying, hey, there seems to be a perception in the market that your brand sucks for the following reasons. And if you're not allowing the brand to say, oh, well, actually, we completely reformulated our product 3 months ago. It seems like people don't know that. Great. There's the focus of the next integration. Okay. And so it takes a lot of humility and low ego, I think, to actually come to the brand and be like, hey, how'd it go? Right? Do we drive any sales? I think a lot of people are terrified of asking that question.
You're like worried to be like, yeah, actually, it really, really underperformed. And you're like, oh,
right.
Shoot.
Well, and my perspective is like, Nelson Mandela has this great quote, which is like, I never lose. I either win or I learn. Because if you ask that question, the brand, if they say it went great, pitch them on the next deal. But if they say, well, it went okay, great, we can learn something from this. And, then you can help them understand how you can serve them in a next pulse of content.
Got it. And this would be a great point to ask you, if you're listening, if you have used any of the brands that have sponsored the Side Hustle Show in the past. I would love to hear from you. We did a kind of a fun creative campaign with OpenPhone over the summer where we made an extended commercial with an interview with the co-founder. And I got some feedback. It was like, wow, that was kind of cool. It didn't even sound like an ad anymore. And it's like, shoot, maybe we should do more of that, and made sure to pass that along to, in my case, the broker, and then onto the brand from there. But very, very cool stuff. What's got you excited for the rest of this year?
Well, I just launched my brand new Sponsor Magnet podcast 2 days ago. You
heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first. My very first episode was with Nir Eyal, if you're familiar with his books, Hooked and Indistractable.
Yeah.
Indistractable, yep. So I talked with him. He was a sponsorship skeptic. He's someone who's sold 1 million copies of books and has never done a single sponsorship. And so we were actually in person together, and we talked through all of his limiting beliefs around why should he even consider doing sponsorships. I'm really excited to just have a forum to have these conversations, because there's no other podcast dedicated to this topic. And so the podcast, and then also my in-person event called Sponsor Games, happening again in March 2026. So very excited for both of those two things.
Sponsor Games, like Hunger Games?
Well, basically what I've done is I've turned my 8-step sponsorship wheel framework into 8 games that you play to actually master these concepts. So the pitch game and the negotiate game, where you're actually doing real role playing live, like with me on stage, where I'm pretending to be a brand and I say one thing and you have to respond.
Oh my gosh,
I have found that like doing these types of activities where you're practicing is the way to learn.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit in those, mock interviews, the role playing, and trying to figure, the brand said they want to do a discovery call. What do I say? Like, oh, well, if I'm prepared for that, I'm much more likely to actually present myself in a way that makes sense and lands that deal. Well, that's awesome. So the new podcast, the Sponsor Magnet podcast, absolutely. We'll link that up. Go check that out in the show notes there. The Sponsor Games coming up if you want to get more. But actually, definitely check out the Sponsor Magnet book, sponsormagnet.com. This is soup to nuts. Like, this is really, really in depth on everything you need to get started. Really well done on that. I know it's selling really well, and I know it will continue to do that. Also, creatorwizard.com. I want to plug the sponsor audit tool. I don't know. It's just kind of a cool, unique positioning. So that's at creatorwizard.com. We'll link that up as well. Appreciate you tuning in to the Side Hustle Show, whether it's your first time listening or your 694th or whatever episode we're on. Appreciate you. If you are newer to the show, you can create a personalized playlist at hustle.show. You can get a custom curated list of our greatest hits episodes based on your answers, and it'll spit back out that playlist that you can add to your device. Go learn what works and go make some more money. Again, hustle.show for that. Big thanks to Justin for sharing his insight. Thanks to our sponsors. Did a whole episode on sponsors. Thanks to our sponsors for helping make this content free for everyone. SideHustleNation.com/deals is where to go to find all the latest offers from our sponsors in one place. Thank you for supporting the advertisers that support the show. It really does make a difference. That is it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're finding value in the show, the greatest compliment is to share it with a friend. So fire off that text message, that Instagram DM saying, hey, I think you should check this out. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. And I'll catch you in the next edition of the Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.